Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over a quick combat and key binding guide because I know this is a lot of people's first time playing games like this, so this is a very useful resource. I wish somebody had given me a video like this when I first started playing these games, 18 years ago. So anyway, we'll get right into it. The first thing you want to do is you want to get your keybinds working. If you don't have good keybinds, you might as well be playing with like one hand. If you are clicking your abilities, if you're using the default keybinds, if you don't have some of these certain ability or some of these certain functions bound, you're just gimping yourself. You really are. So the first thing you want to do is come into the game and press escape. When you click escape, you'll be able to see key bindings menu. Click that. First thing you want to do is rebind A and D from turn to strafe. Turning should always be done with your right mouse button. You should never turn with your keyboard. Once you've done this, your A and D buttons will now function similarly to W and S, where they actually give you directional movement. The second most critical keybind is going to be toggle auto run. This is extremely useful because it means you no longer need to be holding down W in order to be chasing someone, freeing up a finger on your keyboard, for use in combat. If you don't have a gaming mouse, I would say a good keybind for this would be middle mouse button, which is the name of what happens when you push down on your mouse's scroll wheel. Next, scroll down until you see the Show All Nameplates under Targeting Functions. This may already be bound to Control V. If it's not, bind it to Control V. This is extremely useful because it puts a giant label of all your enemies' names and their HP above their head. It can be seen through walls, and it's extremely useful for giving you situational awareness. If you're in a battle without this on, you are gimping yourself. Now go ahead and scroll back up to action bar functions, and here you will see action buttons 1 through 12, which are going to be the default 12 buttons that appear in the bottom left of the UI. Everyone does keybinding differently, but a good philosophy to have while creating your keybinds is to put correlating abilities near one another and to put important abilities that will be pressed either often or reactively on easy buttons like Q, E, T, V, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Buttons with longer cooldowns can be placed on keybinds like Shift 1, Shift 2, Shift E, Shift W, Control F, etc., etc., etc. Using my own keybinds as an example, you can see that I have Heavenly Strike of Autumn bound to 1 because it has a very low cooldown and I'm constantly using it. However, I have a 2-minute cooldown, Soul of the Swordsman, bound to E. And the reason that is because sometimes I need to press that button, Soul of the Swordsman, very quickly in order to survive. And having it on E ensures that my hand will always be able to press it quickly and efficiently, no matter where my hands are on the keyboard. My Disarm button is on Shift 1, because this is a very important button, but I won't be pressing it very often because it has a bit of a longer cooldown. Similarly, in this logic, my Senju Whipping Vines are on 4, because Whipping Vines is what we call a ground-targeted attack, meaning that once you click the button, you then have to point on the ground where you want it to go and press, enable for the jutsu to go off. So if you have this button on a keybind that's hard to use, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get it off in an efficient manner, and by the time you use it, probably the person that's there is going to have moved. Keep this philosophy in mind for your own builds. Remember that anytime you use new keybinds, it will feel very bad for a few hours. Even me, who has used keybinds for years and years, still has trouble when I'm using a new keybind for the first time. It just feels weird on your hand. You're just thinking, well, I should just go back to how it was before because I'm slow with this. No. It takes time to get used to it, but once you are accustomed to it, it is way better, trust me. If you're brand new to keybinding, the best thing you need to do is start simple. So find your most useful or important 12 to 14 abilities and bind them to the following buttons: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Q, E, R, T, G, X, C. You can also use scroll up on the mouse wheel and scroll down on the mouse wheel for keybinds. After a few days, your hands might be starting to get used to these buttons, and you can branch out to using Shift and Control modifiers to further expand your arsenal of, available buttons. But a true and serious pro who has absolutely everything keybound, including Arena 1, 2, 3 and everything, will have only Z and X on the keyboard bound to movement, and those will only be strafe left and strafe right because they will be so good at using auto run and using their mouse to turn and using their other keybinds that they're going to be able to free up W, A, S, and D to be used for spells or to be used for targeting, to be used for things like that. So keep that in mind. But we're starting simple if it's simple, so just keep it with those 12 or 14 that I said before. If you have the money and if you have, the desire to play at a higher level, then what you're going to want to do is get yourself a gaming mouse. I hardly touch my keyboard when I play, except for, pressing, like E or Control or Shift, because I have a Logitech G600, which has a bunch of buttons on the side of it. And I can just use my thumb to click all those buttons, and then I can just use my, the corner of my hand, because I have a pretty big hand, and just press Control or Shift, and then, those 12 buttons on the side of my mouse suddenly become 36 buttons. So, that's very useful. So something to keep in mind, if you have the money for it, they're not usually that expensive on Amazon or something, go pick them up. Like I said, I have a Logitech G600, and to me it's been very good value. I've had it for years. It was pretty cheap, and it just works perfectly for what I use it for. Okay, now that the key binding's over, let's get into some combat tips. Substitution Jutsu is the most important defensive cooldown available to every player. It has 4 distinct functions. The first one is, when you press it, it removes any dot or damage over time effect on the player. It also causes you to become invisible. So if someone is casting a jutsu on you and you use subjutsu in the middle of their cast will be canceled, of course, unless it was a skill shot. It also removes the majority of crowd control abilities on you. And lastly, it can be used to reposition around somebody, which is super important. And can often be the difference between victory and death. If somebody's chasing you and there's a hill to the side, you pretend to be running to the right, but you actually press sub and then run to the left around the hill, and now they're running after where nobody is, and you can make an escape. So very useful. So when you're creating your Shinobi, you're going to have 3 masteries to pick through as a Jonin. And some of these have access to defensive abilities. In PvP, a build with at least 1 defensive ability is recommended. I'd say it's very important. And these usually reduce damage taken, they heal, or they otherwise redirect damage that you would be taking somewhere else, or nullify it. These should usually be saved for when your opponent is about to hit you with a really powerful attack, or when you are trapped in a bad situation, like you're crowd controlled, you're stunned, you're rooted, you're about to die, but somebody's about to heal you, those kind of things. For example, if you're inside someone's Amaterasu and you don't have your subjutsu to remove those dots, that would be a good time to use a defensive. If somebody's about to hit you with a Rasen Shuriken, do a bunch of damage and silence you, that would be a good time for defensive, because it shuts down their burst window, is what we call that. Inversely, your own burst window is what you want to be aiming for with your offensive abilities. And you should use them when your opponent is weak or exposed to attack or other, anything like that. And most masteries have at least, I've found, 1 synergetic combo that should be employed to make the most out of your abilities. And what I mean by a synergetic combo is abilities that you can use in succession that work well together. So for example, as a Senju, I have a great synergetic combo where I root somebody in place, and then I can use my Flocking Birds attack from left kin, and then I can use my Senju Heavenly Crushing Punch and my Whipping Vine and my roots all at once to just do a bunch of damage that normally would knock the player away, but I can concentrate it all in that one point. But you also, want to keep in mind to want to save your Nox, or if your caster, if the opponent you're fighting is, a heavy caster or something that they would be useful for. So, things like that to keep in mind. Stringing together multiple jutsus is the crux of winning a battle. Basically, the thing, it's like a dance with your opponent. They do their attacks, you try to nullify as much as you can. You do your attacks, they try to nullify as much as you can. And whoever, gets the most value out of those 2 trades is usually the winner. When creating a build, the most important thing is to make one you think is cool and one you find fun, because if you're not having fun, you're probably not going to play the game, and then it doesn't really matter if you're good or not, because you're not fucking playing. So, if you want to excel greatly in PvP, you should probably think about picking synergetic masteries. Because the abilities are constantly changing, and we're going to go to beta soon and things like that, I won't list an example now, because they'll probably be outdated by the time somebody watches this. But, check the Discord server, and you can always find some very lively discussion about what trio of masteries work together most synergetically. Mobility. Mobility is the difference between you being alive and you being dead most of the time. Making the most of your movement charges, your subjutsu speed increase, your impairing jutsus, your speed increasing jutsus, and your, placement changing jutsus, for lack of a better word, is incredibly important. Whether you are sticking close to a ranged opponent as melee or kiting a melee opponent as a ranged player, the person who is clever and resourceful with their abilities, they can maintain optimal range on their opponents and will always have a distinct advantage. If you want to be up close on somebody and beat them up, all of a sudden they use something to knock you back, you need to close that gap as fast as possible to keep doing damage, or they're going to be doing more damage to you in that period of time. That's the most simple way to put it. So practice understanding your movement charges, practice understanding, if you have a root or a stun or a slow or anything like that, when is the best time to use that. The phrase is always highest value. What is the highest value you can get out of your exchange? So just try to remember that. Ninja tools. Ninja tools are extremely useful, and the most useful of all these tools is undoubtedly the smoke bomb. The smoke bomb functions similarly to subjutsu. It doesn't clear status effects or crowd control, but what it does do, it causes you to be momentarily invisible, and it disorients, basically stuns your opponents, leaving them open to attack. Great times to use smoke bomb can be when your enemy is charging a strong attack, like a Rasen Shuriken or something. When you're trying to escape, it just gives you time to make distance. When you're in the middle of a crowd of enemies, because it's an AoE, it'll stun all of them. When your enemy is about to get a heal off, you can do that to stop their heal and then try to finish them off. When your enemy's trying to escape, especially if they're about to jump, you can smoke bomb them, and that'll just completely mess their jump up. It's very useful. I think smoke bombs are probably the best item in the game, and they should always be on your character pretty much in any situation. Another great one is antidote, but there's a lot you can choose from in your second slot, but always at least have smoke bombs on. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them the best I can. Otherwise, I would check out some maybe different add-ons, things like that. If you want add-ons for Shinobi Story, just look up WoW add-ons for 3.3.5. You can find a couple websites that give those out. But once you get the hang of using the controls, you can have a lot of fun playing this game. You can have a lot of clever, fun, spicy, cool, exciting moments. So just keep that in mind. If you're not having a lot of fun with the game now and you don't have some of these keybinds set them up, use them for a couple days, and I promise you'll be having more fun. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.